I have a couple suggestions. One of them is that I've been reading Serge Leclerc's book, Psychoanalyzing. And he brings up the words, the letter. He brings this up in relationship to the object and to the subject. And he mentions the subject as being commuting. And I think what he means by this is that it's sort of a vanishing subject. It appears and vanishes. He mentions the letter as being static. And what
as being what? As being what?
It's the word static.
Huh?
It's the word spelled Thegic.
This is from Husserl's philosophy on language. It's a Husserlian concept.
Okay, so the only definition I have been able to sort of grasp of it is it's pertaining to dogma, or maybe a mark, something that persists, that is written. But this is my question. I don't know about this function of the letter, so I'd like to discuss it. And also, then the object, Leclerc is discussing the object as being stable. You have a blinking subject, you have a stable object, and then you have what is called a static or static letter, which I'm unclear about. I'd like to talk about that.
Yep.
I just wanted him to repeat the word that you associated with the subject.
Commuting. Like if you were to commute from Oakland to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Okay.
From which year?
To unconsciousness.
Year of publishing, Doug, because that's important.
I'm sorry?
In which year was this book published?
Oh, 71.
It's important to situate it in relation with Lacan's teaching.
I think it was about 71 or something. Is that right?
1968.
68. Oh yeah, 68. Okay, it's even older. Yeah, well, it's very interesting in French and in English. Letter has the two different meanings, which is the letter needed to write ABC, etc. These are letters, and the letter is what you send in the mail as well. Okay, so you have these two instances of meaning. Are we talking about the letter of the alphabet, or are we talking about the letter that we send on a mail? This is one point. Then, if we oppose object and subject, and their relative structures, he mentioned that the object has a static structure, has a static structure, and the subject is something vanishing and commuting from one sentence to the next. Is it the same subject when in my first sentence and in the second sentence? The subject then there is starts with the syntactic subject, as we learn at school. I do something, but then it is carrying on some kind of way to accompany the enunciation, the utterance, till the end of the sentence. I do something, and so on and so forth, and when I say I, the subject is patent, it is there. But then it goes below. It goes in. It carries on, accompanying me in the rest of the sentence. And when I reach the very end of the sentence with the period, then something comes back to the very beginning of the sentence. And although meanwhile the object, if I say I read a book, the book is the object, but it is I who reads a book, and within the object book there is the subject. And this is what I understand when Lacan says that a signifier represents a subject for another signifier. When I say I read a book, this object book is modified by I who reads it. I transform the book that I'm reading by reading it. Therefore, this object is transformed by my subjectivity. And as I mentioned many times, it's when we do not know what is to differentiate the object and the subject, mentioned this sentence, I am a liar, or I lied when I said that. You see that it's very different. The object, a liar, does not exist. It has to be understood as transformed by my subjectivity, or the subjectivity of the one who are telling you that you are a liar. It is the difference between subjectivity and ontology. And to make the difference, and I think it's very important because it's very, very common in what the patients tell us, is that the difference has to be pinpointed on the syntactic level first, to begin with. The syntax does not lie. And so now to come back to the letter, in the process of the utterances, the discourse I hold, I maintain in front of my analysts, I'm dropping letters. Letters are feeling the ground of the office of the analyst. And these letters are, as Lacan says, small letters, like alphabet letters. And they are all the way around. And this has the leads to the feeling that it's very frustrating and a source of anguish, because I don't know what to do with these letters. And sometimes these letters, small letters, alphabet letters, are condensing together, and they become a letter that has to a letter in the sense of what I send in the mail, and this letter is dedicated to someone, and there is some rapture and of condensing all these letters together to build one letter. And this letter now is an object. Is an object that I can dedicate to someone. So the path between the small letters to the letter is described in The Ravishing of Lolvestein. And with these two movements, one is going down by all these letters twinkling, or I don't know if the word is correct, and then the ravishing, or the rapture, in which is it's different between something that is going top down and then bottom up. And that's why an analysant has to be patient, and it can be a source of a lot of many anguishes to see all these letters split around in the office of the analyst. What can I do with all this? And but sometimes they gather. And it's a ravishing moment, a rapture moment. Well, I don't know if that's a part of the answer to your questioning, Doug.
Yes, this is helpful. The letter becomes an object, you said, at one point. I'm trying to relate this to perception. The perception of a book, for instance. Any old book, it's always an object. Is there a difference between the object we are discussing? Is this a psychoanalytic object, one which has a certain poignancy for the subject, and this is different from an everyday object?
There are similarities and there are differences. A book, an old book, a precious book that I look at, follows a path from perception to my to my consciousness. And this path is, I went through this description 2 or 3 times already. This path has a moment when it is some kind of hallucination, some kind of delusion or hallucination. I have to hallucinate this book to be able to recognize this book as a book, and after a certain path, it becomes the book I'm talking about, the book I have in front of me, and this book is mediated by my hallucination and by my experience of previous books I have read or that I've enjoyed looking at. Okay. So we can again one time, if you wish, we can go through this transformation. I think it's very important to be aware of this transformation, because it can only be only, I don't know, but it's easier to understand this transformation if we go through a topological structure, namely of the projective plane. On the other case, when we are dealing with these small letters, which after a while turn into a letter which needs to have its receiver. There is something very similar, except for the fact that the perception is not due to the eyes. It's not an object on a table that I perceive. It is the perception of all these letters which are dropped on the floor of the analyst's office. Therefore, you see that they are more delusionals. Of course, I'm building, by my discourse, I am building all these letters. And I'm dropping them, and they are there. And I say, oh, last week I told you this, and I don't know what to do with this. And 2 weeks ago I told you this about my mother, my father, and my son. What to do with this? It's still a mess. All these hallucinated objects, which are these letters, they are going to the same process of gathering through the same projective plane, due to the matching, the positive matching with my experience. And I would say, oh, I understand why there was the letter A, B, C, and X together on the floor. And this is turned into a letter, which can be a purloined letter. And if you come back to the story of Edgar Poe and the purloined letter, it's exactly the case. This letter cannot be seen Because what the police is hallucinating is a different letter. It's a letter which has the characteristic of a letter. And their perception is failing all the time. Their eyes cannot see the letter which is on the chimney. They cannot see it. And if Dupin sees this letter, it is due to his hallucination. He builds the place of the letter by his small letters built by his reasoning. His reasoning is about a purloined letter, and therefore he finds the object, and he can steal it. And in this purloined letter, you see that the intimate connection between an object and an object of desire. But there, the desire has to be has to go through the very tiny paths of language and reasoning, the path of symbolic. It is through a reasoning, symbolic articulation that he is able to see the letter on the chimney. Otherwise, he would be blind, as has been the police. Then, if I want to associate on this book of Leclerc, there is something very funny, because this guy, his symptom was to be very extremely obsessive, and he was very fond of logical deductions, and one signifier leading to another signifier, and so on and so forth. S1, S2, S3, and so on. And up to the point where he finds this word, porgerie. I suppose it's written the same in English, because it doesn't mean anything. Except for the fact that for him, this word, this signifier is like something that is filling the empty space of the symbolic.
Yeah, like the navel of the dream.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Except that this point has to be void, has to be empty, and because he was so it was such a necessity for him to be obsessive and have an answer to this to fill the void, that he put the word in it instead. That's very funny, because it's it's a very good exemplification. And when I read that book, actually was in 70 or something. I was very obsessive as well. And I really enjoyed that book because I said, Jesus Christ, that's how it is. It's so you have the answer to all your questions in this book.
Well, yeah, I very much enjoyed the book, and there's probably no lack of coincidence there. But when I reached the point of, this is driving the question of the letter, it's exactly this, where he comes to this place where he seems to be so certain that he's reached a final answer for the analysis, and it is this term for jelly.
Yeah, that's it is the major difference between a segment and with in mathematics, a segment has closed ends. It's from 0 to 1. A segment includes the 0 and the 1. And an open segment, I don't believe it's the term in English, but I believe that you're going to understand what I mean. Maybe you're going to exclude the 0 or the 1. If you want to have a segment open at both ends, it starts at 0 plus epsilon, and it finishes with 1 minus epsilon. Okay? And this is what Lacan says of the structure of the symbolic. Each signifier points to another signifier, but it points to the S of a bar. It points to a lacking signifier. And the jouissance and the rapture of Leclerc is by putting this word there instead. It's very satisfying. What I don't know is how long did his satisfaction, the duration of his satisfaction afterwards.
Yeah. Thank you. This is very clarifying. Appreciate it.
Lacan did a play of words, I think, between the letter, the small letter were dropping on the floor, and sometimes they became liter.
Yeah, that's right.
Liter.
That's right. He's using the term letter and liter. At the very end, the analyst has to become a litter, some garbage, something that's going to be dropped, and yeah. Do you have some more things you want to discuss, or do you want to?
Well, before I go on, I just want to open the floor to anybody else. Are there things folks have in mind? Anything anyone desires to discuss?
You mentioned Leclerc's utilization of the word aesthetic, yeah? And I said it was a concept, a category from Husserl's, German philosopher from the early 20th century. The aesthetic basically is a moment of stasis, whereby a subject can make an enunciation. So, in what has been described by Jacques, for instance, the thetic would be the moment where all the small letters coalesce into the one letter, which then you take as your letter, yeah? And that's the reference there, basically. Except that, as we know from everyday practice, as soon as the stasis has taken place, then the drive comes back. Because not all of the drive has been employed into producing that aesthetic position and dissolves that aesthetic position. So it's always like walking, equilibrium, disequilibrium, equilibrium, disequilibrium.
Yeah, thanks. Static was the dangling signifier. I was waiting for you to tell me about it, Cyril. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I recall from when I read the Leclerc text, one of the things I took away from it was that he was using the notion of the letter as an inscription in the body, that it was the site of marking of the jouissance of the other that could then be almost like a black hole around which signifiers could circulate, but it was this marking in the flesh that in some way gave it some sort of stability and consistency. I'm open to having that corrected if anybody has a different reading.
I don't remember this because I haven't read that book for many years, and I don't remember. If this is the case, then it refers to something written in the real of the body. Maybe that's what it is, because these letters that are dropped and they are something. They are the symptoms. That's what we talk when we are in analysis. We are putting forward and dropping on the floor the symptoms. The enunciation of the symptoms that we suffer from.
I actually agree with John in terms of what's in the book. The letter is written on the zones by the other. And it seems to me that there is a certain connection between the jouissance and the representation in the letter. The zone the erotogenic zone is activated by the other. Like the finger of the mother is the example in the book, just touching the dimple of the neck of the child. And it's the prior investment of the mother in her finger as potentially erotic, which awakens this zone in the child, and it is this stroking which writes the letter on the flesh. But I think in this instance, there also maybe is the surroundings, the atmosphere, whatever arbitrary extras are in the environment that can become tied to the instance of the writing of the letter. So that the letter itself can take on, it has a sort of, is it so that maybe it could be represented by a picture of sorts, by some other sort of memory than exactly just being touched by the finger? Maybe the mother is wearing a red sweater, and maybe somehow there's a particular jouissance associated to a red sweater, which has to do with the awakening of the eroticism. Maybe somewhere in the history, in the case history of the subject, there can be some importance to red sweaters, which are a letter that gets dropped on the floor and eventually becomes red.
Hmm. Yeah.
Jack, there was a question from Ted. It's on a chat, and Thomas is responding. Can you see the chat below, Jack?
No.
Okay, let me read the question. The question from Ted is this. It's not this matching of a sign standing for a subject for another subject, precisely semantics rather than syntax. And Thomas is adding, I think Ted is right. Jacques stressed the term syntax quite a lot. I don't think it was the intention. I wonder if you could respond to that.
Hold on a second. Let me read it again.
Okay,
Is not this matching of a sign standing for a subject for an semantics, not okay. Question from Ted. I have a question. Is not this matching of a sign standing? Okay. I think it's very, for me, I think it's important to be sensitive to this question. By our day-to-day life and when we work as psychologists or psychiatrists, we are prone to grab the semantics because it talks to us. We immediately have the feeling that we are grabbing a sense, or maybe we are grabbing a question mark. But anyway, we are dragged through toward the semantics of the sentences we hear, and this is normal. But here, through Lacanian and Freudian psychoanalysis, I think that the desire of the analyst has to go on another has to walk on a different trail, which is the trail of the utterance, not on the semantic side, but on the syntactic side. And we are not very familiar to this. This is a totally different approach, and that's why I always emphasize this dimension of syntax. this is the main. This is one of the main differences between the subject of the unconscious and the ego psychology. Ego psychology is riding on the semantics, and we want to ride on the syntax. Semantics is lying all the time because because on the semantics I am always led by my experience of what I listen to. If I write the syntax, of course, again, it's only my experience who let me hear what I'm hearing when I listen to an analysand. But if I stick to the syntax, I am much more bordered on the left and on the right. And I am pretty much able to give clues to the analysand by pointing the syntax of what he is saying. I don't know if an example or a couple of examples are going to come to my mind now, but this is what I experience every day.
And I think even though he derived his own personal satisfaction from it, Leclerc's emphasis on the nonsense syllable cordiale shows that it's a syntactic function. It's some concatenation of letters that find a place in an utterance that have no meaning. And if you follow that trace of nonsense, then you get to something true about the analysand, regardless of what they think it means.
Yeah. Yes. I think you are noting what's important is this poor jelly. It's because it's meaningless. So, what is the semantics of poor jelly? What is it? No semantics, no meaning. But he is building this word out of different other words that he is putting together with the dream of the licorn. And so even here, you have nothing to grab with the semantics, and but you fall with him into an object which is very fixed, and this is a bit different from what we were saying before about the importance of the syntax. It's too bad. Maybe for next time I can find 2, 3, or 4 examples of what I'm saying, because it's true. I experience that every day, and I noticed that when I pinpoint this to the analysand, there is a shift of perspective automatically. If sometimes I give indications of the semantics, but then in this case, I'm pretty sure it's ego to ego. It's I am one of his alter ego when I do that. And as usually, I'm aware of this, not all the time, you can believe me, but when I'm aware of this, I turn this into an interpretation. That is, namely, in the fact that I'm going to see what is going to emerge out of this semantic grabbing of what he is saying, the analysant is saying. It's extremely different when I do that and when I when I give an interpretation on the semantics of of an element of discourse, it is very different than when I give an interpretation of an element of the syntax of a sentence that has been uttered. Very different. And the funny thing is, what you say?
There's another question regarding the syntax on the chat stream right now.
Yep. Oh, is that right? Hold on a second. From Ted to everyone, but doesn't syntax never change? Every sentence has subject predicate. No. What is the difference between letters other than semantics? Yeah, that is really what's interesting in the syntax. It is that it has always a subject. That's exactly what it is, and there is no real structural difference between the subject of the syntax at the predicate and the subject of the unconscious of the one who is uttering this sentence. That is that is one of the most important discovery of Lacan and Freud. You are interested in this predicate, and this predicate is patent at the beginning of a sentence when I say I, but then it is following me in my discourse up to the next sentence. When I say I again, it's going to be patent again. You see, it's a movement which is very interesting because it's up and down. It is in front of me, and then it is repressed. It is repressed up to the next sentence. So you say, what is the difference between letters other than semantics? I don't understand the question. What is the difference between letters other than semantics? I'm not sure I understand the question, but it's I don't know.
Maybe next time with some examples that will become clear and we can further refine the question. we've got a couple minutes left before I think we run out of time. Does anybody else have any last comments or things to say? I don't have anything new to say, other than I feel like this is an important discussion, at least for myself, because like Jacques said, we're prone to listening to the semantics, and I feel that for me, one of the things that is difficult clinically is listening to the syntax.
Yes.
So I feel this is a good direction, at least for me.
Yes, it's very difficult because we are so easily grabbed by the semantics that we do not listen to what is said. That's right. Yeah, that's right. But it's a must. It's something that's very important, I think, in what we are doing. Okay.
Sounds as if Ted is saying, how can you possibly listen to the syntax if it's always the same?
If it's always what?
It seems like Ted is suggesting that the syntax is always the same. So what would there be to listen to?
Okay. Yes, it's always the same, but the subject is different all the time. The subject is vanishing and transforming from one sentence to the next. Of course, there is always a subject in a sentence, but it's not the same subject. That's when you say that it's never the same order that runs in below a bridge. It's always the water. It's never the same water, and it's never the same subject. You see? Okay, so let me tell you that next time we'll have the pleasure to have Jeanne Lafont, who is going to be with us. Jeanne Lafont, who is a very nice person and very good in topology, and we are going to discuss about the three prisoners. You know that Lacan emphasized this story about the history of the three prisoners. And we're going to describe that on. We are going to discuss this on the logical dimension, and then she'll